What's your your full 90 days? What are your top priorities during that time?
Well, working on coming up with proposals to get it enticing for businesses to come.
Right.
Trying to get certain areas rezoned so that they're mixed use, and getting a section of property rezoned to manufacturing textile.
Yeah.
So, because we need to bring those higher paying jobs. Machine shops pay people excellent money. Let's look outside the box. Let's look at renewable energy. Instead of putting, filling our fields, make it so that your vehicles are covered so they're not as hot when you have to get in and out of the vehicle, and you're producing power through the sun.
There you go.
Let's look at sustainable things that work, that are common sense.
Yeah.
Hey St. Cloud, Dalton Albritton here with Jason Levy, and our special guests today are Mayoral Candidate Mr. Tony Busby. Thank you, Tony, so much for coming on board. I know you and I have done this a couple times before, but this one is incredibly important. Can you tell us why?
Well, the election is less than 3 weeks away, and time is ticking down, and I want to get my message out to the voters, and I want to engage with the voters and see what questions they have for me, so that we can,
Of course.
get answers to them so they can make an informed decision.
So we did do a post on getting an Ask Tony post, and we did get a bunch of questions. So we'll have a basis to ask you these questions.
Awesome.
From the people themselves.
Yeah, and I felt that was incredibly important. I really wanted, a lot of people don't have a voice, and they don't really know what's going on, and they don't make themselves privy to information to know what's going on. They'll go walk up to the voter booth, but for the most part, they're just checking boxes with what may align with, oh, well, I heard this about this person, or, that I seen one smear campaign on this person, or, I put on the post that I don't think anyone should vote for anyone unless they check all of their boxes first. And like I said, I really appreciate you doing this, because you're welcoming any criticism, any feedback, anything. You're putting yourself in the line of fire, as you have before.
Oh, yes.
To answer these questions and to be out there and be present for the community, which I really appreciate in a candidate. I appreciate that in a leader. I appreciate that in just any person. So thank you for your service prior to and your service in doing that for your community. So we're going to jump in. I have a great, amazing question for you that I want to jump into first, which is, I love the weather right now, and it's super cold, and it's getting colder. You guys control that, right? The government controls that.
No, I think that's the good old man upstairs that controls all that.
All right,
Yes,
I was
sir.
just wondering. 'Cause I hear rumors all the
There's
time.
rumors everywhere. Yeah, absolutely.
Jason, do you have any starter questions before we jump into the...
I mean, look, the one thing we were talking about earlier is a lot of the main streets, a lot of the small towns, right? We have Winter Garden, we have Sanford, even to a certain extent, St. Augustine are considered small town. St. Cloud is a small town. St. Augustine is huge. When you go there, and even so, 75% of St. Augustine is walking distance. Right, absolutely. You could do anything, within that period. So, and I know that's what we've been trying to do with St. Cloud. I know the St. Cloud Main Street helps a lot with a lot of the, and I know we have questions behind the preservation of the businesses. So, what is your goal to try to help continue that moving forward, to continue being that small town?
My goal is to keep the small town feel. I mean, we are not small anymore. I mean, when I moved here, we had about 22,000 residents. After talking to some of the local law enforcement and getting some updated numbers, their estimation is we're about 73,000 right now. So, I mean, that's a huge jump in just over a decade. Yeah. So it's just about tripled. It tripled. So, there's places to put, bigger buildings, stuff like that, but we need to keep the downtown area historic, walking distance, friendly, inviting, make sure that the businesses down here have the support they need to be able to continue. I mean, if you look at the brick debacle that we had, I personally was part of a organization called FAVOB. I'm still part of that organization. And we started having meetings in St. Cloud because of the bricks, and to bring 20, 30 veterans to local businesses so that we could still provide some income to those businesses who otherwise weren't getting much of anything because there was no access. I mean, you had to park a mile away to walk down to where the
Right.
places were, and FAVOB is the Florida Association of Veteran-Owned Businesses, and, veterans like myself, we don't mind a march every once in a while.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great.
I personally know a couple businesses that just because of how often and how long the roads were shut down, a couple of them went out of business because of the decrease in foot traffic and things like that. And I know that's a huge issue I was actually just talking with a client about it recently of them asphalting over 10th Street, and now it doesn't even look like anything was done. So it was debacles like that. It's like, I don't want to point any fingers or point any blame or at any one person, but I think obviously there's things that could be handled better in any business and in any avenue.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest problems with that project was that they didn't have somebody that specializes in bricklaying doing the job. Not saying that company's not a reputable company that tried to do the job, but and then I got told by several people here that, there's a Florida statute that says that the city has to take the lowest and most reasonable bid and the most responsive bidder. And I said, well, yes, there is a statute that says that, but there's a caveat to that says if it's a specialty project, like bricklaying, you don't have to follow that statute. You can actually request other bids. You can deny the bids. You can seek out somebody and pay more than the lowest bid that specializes in that specific type of work.
Right.
That's interesting. I we'll get to obviously I want to ask the fan questions and the questions from the community first and foremost. But you just struck on a chord. Like in my industry, it's not like that, right? I come from a printing background, and we know a great printer in town, but it's a lot of those things when they go for city jobs and things like that, they're all putting in their own bids. And it's interesting to me that there's almost a statute or a reasoning behind like, we're going to take the lowest bid. Because at least in my industry, we often price for quality. Like your quality is going to be up here. Your quality houses are going to be up here. Your quality agents are going to be up here. They're going to know their price, and they're not going to budge on that. So it's interesting to me that something that's going to affect everyone essentially takes a low bid.
Right.
I think it's very counterintuitive, but that's just me personally.
I mean, the movie Armageddon put it perfect when they're getting ready to launch into space. I can't remember the character's name, but he looks at one of the guys. He goes, "Don't you feel great? We're on like 90,000 pounds of fuel and on a rocket about to do 12 G's into space, and it was built by the lowest bidder."
It's insane to me. I mean, no discredit to those companies, but at least just this is my perspective looking at, right, is like your quality's up here and you're going to pay for it.
Right.
So, and I think that's a consumer kind of thing as well. Anybody that buys high-end products, Nike, Apple, things like that. We'll jump into the first question, and the topic is neighborhood beautification and property management. So one of these was programs for improving the appearance and upkeep of neighborhoods and downtown, as we just spoke about a little bit.
Well, with downtown, we have the CRA district, which is Community Redevelopment, and I can't remember what the A stands for, but they actually have grants, like facade grants. I know a year or two back, they were giving out up to $50,000 to help businesses or even homeowners clean up their facade and beautify their property in the CRA district. Now, that district is limited to the downtown area and parts of the grid. So, I mean, if you're in the outskirts of town or in one of these subdivisions, you wouldn't qualify for that. Sure. But, I mean, there's I think, avenues that we could look for as long as the city has the money to provide these funds.
Mm-hmm. And then the second caveat to that question would be community resources or assistance for homeowners struggling with property maintenance, both in the property maintenance department as you
right. And part of the problem is in order to have a healthy tax base, you need to be between 25 and 35% geographically commercial. St. Cloud currently sits at about 10%. It fluctuates back and forth. But if you do not have a solid tax base, you're not going to be able to afford things without either getting grants, which are never guaranteed, and we see that with the SAFER grant. The last 2 times the city has applied for the SAFER grant, they were denied because it only goes to so many departments or municipalities. So, so you can't guarantee on grants. If you don't have the tax base coming in from the sales tax and the property tax of businesses, what are you left with? You're left with going to the purse of the people.
Right.
So, and that's one thing I want to avoid is increasing taxes or creating new fees to push onto the people. Instead, I want to focus on enhancing our economic development so that we can afford to do these things.
Right. I think that Jason, you can speak on this too, but I have to, in my industry being in real estate, I am constantly educating people. I try to not comment on anything social media related ever, but I feel there's a huge misunderstanding when it comes to development. And if I can kind of break it down for the audience, it has a lot to do with that. You said it's fairly low commercial, but we need that commercial development to fund overall development of our roads and our systems.
Correct.
And how do we get that? We get that through housing counts. So it's interesting to me, people will ask, well, why are we getting so many mattress stores, tire stores, and things like that? And it's due to that reason, is it's a very low residential and only these certain commercial companies can come in. Correct?
Well, yes and no. Okay. I want to open it up for a lot of smaller businesses, small manufacturing, small textiles, family-owned, because when you bring in the big box stores like Walmart and you give $1 to Walmart, most of that money is going to wherever their headquarters is. Right. It's not staying local. So if you shop small and shop local, roughly the last estimate I saw was about between 73 and 76 cents of that dollar will stay in your community. Whereas the big box stores, it doesn't.
Right.
Also, one of the things that people don't realize, I've heard lots of people say they want a Target in town. Well, Target, it's not that Target wouldn't want to come. The problem is the banks. The banks will turn around and say, well, if there's not 120,000, residents, we don't think that your store will be profitable.
Right.
So we're taking a much larger risk on our money, so we're not going to loan the money to the corporation until they get this particular amount of rooftops in the community, which is what you were alluding to. So instead of focusing on big box, I want to continue to focus on smaller business, family-owned business. Keep it community.
Yeah, and that's a big part of St. Cloud. Go ahead.
No. Like I'm just going back to St. Augustine. Like there's not a Walmart, there's not a Target. I think the nearest Publix is on the outskirts, right? So everything within the walking distance period that we talked about, 75% of them, like they're all mom and pops. They're all small business, and that's exactly what we need to do. We need to make sure that people know who these small businesses are and just grow with them. Because that's all part of the small town feel that we're trying to keep.
And talking about business, I had a question asked to me. I know it's probably not on your list, but I want to address it. I had a gentleman email me yesterday asking me my thoughts on the city's new zoning plans for Lakefront, part of Florida Ave, and all that. So, am I in favor of commercial? Absolutely. But what was explained to me, or what was the understanding of the gentleman was that if his home got damaged in a hurricane and it was more than 50% damaged, he would not be able to rebuild a home. He would have to put a commercial building there, which I think is ridiculous. You got to keep that small town feel.
Right.
We can convert some of the homes into businesses, but we shouldn't take away the ability for people to continue to own their homes and pass down that generational wealth. The way you do that is you convert it, instead of converting it strictly commercial, you convert it as mixed use. If you convert it to mixed use, that allows the people who have their homes to stay in their homes forever, and anybody who wants to purchase a building and convert it to commercial would have the ability to do so because it's mixed use.
Makes sense.
Agreed. And this is a good segue because our next topic of questions would be economic development and business attraction. So the first question in line here would be strategies and incentives to attract businesses, especially in the downtown and Lakeshore area.
Well, we definitely need to reevaluate what they're trying to do, and I would be in favor of changing it to a mixed-use platform. Not strictly commercial, not strictly residential. I know people in the lakefront are concerned about tire stores popping up next to their house. There has to be guidelines in the code that prevents things like that to make it more like the St. Augustine feel that you're talking about. So we definitely need to to do something like that. We also need to create incentives, for businesses to come here, but they have to make sense. They have to be able to be done without a loss. I mean, I remember several years ago, Colt was talking about moving to Osceola County. That ended up with millions of dollars that got dropped on the table, spent, and then Colt pulled out with no repercussions.
Wow.
That is a huge problem for me. We want to make it enticing for businesses to come, but we need to make sure it's fair on both ends.
Sure. Yeah, mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then the second part of that question would be desire for more professional businesses over housing developments, which we talked about a little bit, but we'll dig in a little more.
Well, there needs to be a healthy mix of not just professional, but there has to be textile manufacturing. Right. There has to be service type jobs. Like my business would be considered a professional business. I'm an insurance broker. But yet you look at the other foot where I'm a firearms instructor, that is a retail business. Yeah. So one of the things I want to implement is, if elected, is to get a business-oriented group together from multiple industries to basically become like the mayoral advisory board, where if there's issues with that businesses are having in the community, they can approach the mayor directly and be like, hey, this company's having an issue, they don't know where to go. The other things we need to do is we need to clean up the permitting process. We need to make it easier. I know the big developers have a liaison in there to walk them through the processes. Why don't we have a liaison for the small mom and pop shops? Right. Why is it only for the big entities? So let's make it easy. Let's bring the city back to the KISS method. Keep it simple and stupid, as they say in the military. Yeah. So that way we can take care of our residents, take care of our small businesses while inviting new businesses in.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's sound, especially because that's one of the big issues I hear a lot. Obviously, I'm in real estate. It's like, are we having another development? What's the deal with this development? But I can tell you first and foremost, those developers from a money standpoint are the ones willing to pay the money before the commercial people are. They're the ones that have the money and are willing to pay it because they're going to generate the money end over end quicker. Like, you're going to come in and take over that land, build a bunch of houses. More than likely, those houses are going to sell quicker than anything else. Like those, if you're looking at it from a business standpoint, it only makes sense that housing development is going to go in before new roads or new anything. And plus, I would challenge anybody to find any town or municipality in history that the infrastructure was set before the influx of people came.
But at the same time, though, it has to be hand in hand. Like, it can't just be, we're just going to do all this development or invite all these people to live here and then work on the infrastructure.
Right. Well,
it has to go hand in hand.
And that's where impact fees are supposed to take effect. Because the impact fees, and a lot of people have a misunderstanding about impact fees, because when I tell people about the 3 ways of municipality to get money, I had several people go, well, what about the impact fees? The impact fees are a one-time fee that are supposed to be designed to create the services and infrastructure needed for whatever's being built. That is why it's called an impact fee, because you're paying to have that road widened. You're paying for those water lines coming in. You're paying for the fire and the police usage for the first year. Impact fees are good for 1 year and 1 year only. After that, the municipality is required to find a different way to fund that ongoing service that's needed.
So our next one would be, since the questions came from the public, this would be public infrastructure and safety. So we touched on this a little bit when we first started. Traffic management improvements, particularly with growing communities. And I would love for you to touch on, this is very important, how much of this is within your control and how much of it is not in your control.
Believe it or not, a lot of people don't realize that most of the roads, the major roads that go through St. Cloud, they are not owned by the city. 192 is a state road. County Road 15, Narcoossee, is a county road.
Nolte, right?
Nolte is a county road. Neptune is a county road. Canoe Creek is a county road. Hickory Tree is a county road.
Every main line of traffic.
So every main line of traffic is either county or state, which means the funding to widen and enhance those roads have to come from either the county or the state. The city has really no play in that, except for they can petition to the county, hey, please fix this road, and they can do some kind of possibly a joint effort if it's within the boundaries of the city. But at the end of the day, the decision is at the county or state level on most of those roads. Now, when you're talking about downtown, the grid area, inside the developments, and any commercial areas, those would be city roads that are off of the main drags.
Is Narcoozy considered a city road as well?
No, Narcoozy is a county road, and it's County Road 15 is actually the route.
So when folks are saying that they're going to do 4 lanes for Narcoozy as a mayor, like how obviously you can't do that.
They have no control over that.
Have no
so
control.
if somebody is promising that, that's an empty promise because they can't do it unless they know that the county's already going to do it, and they're just going to try to take credit for it.
Got it. Yeah, it makes sense.
As far as I'm aware, and just the last I heard, I didn't know they had any plans to increase lanes on Narcoozy. I believe their plan was just do Sunbridge Lane all the way up, which was going to be your sister road to that, all the way from Nova to 417. And that's where your traffic was going to be alleviated. That's the last plans I heard about being in real estate, was that was going to be your other road to accompany Narcoozy, and those were going to be your
and that's about the same thing I heard too. I have not heard of any plans of widening the road. I was using it as an example.
Sure. So piggyback on this, when you say there's counties, there's city areas of jurisdiction. So not only just the widening of the roads, but improved lighting, traffic signals, things like that.
Correct.
That all falls into that.
Yep. Except for when you're in like an HOA situation. Like I live in Indian Lakes. My HOA actually rents the light poles from OUC that light up our community. So if you go into individual communities, there's a pretty good chance that your community or your development that you're living in is actually the one renting these poles. Now, there are places in the city where the city is also renting poles and stuff like that for the usage. Now, the good thing is when one of those poles go down in a hurricane, it is not up to the HOA or the municipality to replace it. OUC, since they own it, they're required to replace it. So it actually, it in the long run, it could save money doing it that way.
That makes a lot of sense. You might think like, oh well, they don't own it. Like, so if anything happens, they could just come in and take them all out. I mean, yeah, supposedly, but they're also not responsible, like you said.
Right.
Like your HOA isn't responsible. And trust me, folks, I'm in real estate. You don't want your HOA responsible for a lot.
No, you do not.
Before we move off of the infrastructure real quick. So, I mean, some of the things that I've heard from my neighbors and a couple of comments that have come from the social post is traffic, right? I know we talked about those roads being state or county, but what does the mayor have access to help and alleviate some of those things specifically?
Well, we need to talk to the traffic department to see about light timing. You know, roads that are within the city's control, we need to look at alternative ways of traffic flow. I know Kissimmee at their lakefront, they have been very successful with some roundabouts. Narcoozy, further up Lake Nona, they've also implemented some roundabouts on some, off-county, off-state roads, which seem to work and help the flow of traffic move. I'm not saying that's a save-all. I'm saying that it could help keep the traffic flowing smoother. It's not a cure-all, but we need to look at what has been successful in other municipalities and other governments to see if it's working for them. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Borrow it from somebody else. Now, if somebody comes up with an innovative idea that nobody else has come up with before, yes, let's look at it. Let's see if we can implement it. Right. But, if there's no reason to reinvent the wheel, let's not.
Does the mayor seat have ability of getting involved and helping the traffic flows?
The mayor's position has no more power than any other council member. Okay. They are one vote on the panel of the council. The only difference between the mayor and any other council member in St. Cloud is the mayor signs documents and runs the meetings and does more public appearances. That's it.
Okay. So that was going to be my follow-up question too. What is the difference in the different council members? But you
Yep.
already answered that. So all the other C2 and C3, like all the others,
Everybody has
you work
equal power.
collaboratively.
Yep. You work collaboratively, but you have to make sure you stay within the sunshine law. So you can only do it in public meetings and public forums that have notice. You can't, if elected, I couldn't go sit down with Colby Urban, who's a sitting council member right now, and be like, hey, let's talk shop. You can't do that. That's illegal.
Right. Okay. Very good. If you want to get to the next question.
It's very interesting. And now not to bring it up, but like B&I has taught me how a lot of this runs. Because I'm in your position, so
Yes.
so it's very interesting to me. So your next topic would be community engagement and cleanup incentives. So the two topics we have here would be guidance and support for community cleanup events such as Adopt a Street programs, and then interest in preserving St. Cloud's small town feel amid rapid growth, which we've touched on.
Yeah.
You know, I love the ideas of doing things like that. You know, I think that's where, you know, as mayor, I could talk to the school board and work with them, maybe have a day of cleanup where kids that need service hours to graduate, because I know my kids need 100 hours of community service hours in order to graduate. You know, let's do a day of community service where the high school kids can go out and actually pick up trash or something, you know, go through neighborhoods. I know Hopkins Park, we did a big volunteer thing on Martin Luther King Day where there was probably, I'd say 50 or 60 of us that literally volunteered, went down there in the morning and spent, you know, 3-4 hours literally picking up trash on the streets in that general area. You know, there's no reason why, you know, regular people and organizations, even my daughter has looked at me because she goes to St. Thomas Aquinas, and a lot of times when we pull out, we turn right and go down the backside of like Planet Fitness, Staples, all that. Yeah. And she sees all the ducks back there, and she loves seeing the ducks. So it's kind of an incentive for me to drive back there, is so she can see all the little ducklings. And she, you know, the other day she was like, Daddy, the trash is really bad here. We should get something and clean it up. And I agree with her. And that's something we plan on doing, you know, and trying to get some more volunteers to come out and help out with things like that.
Would there be a program that you would bring up?
I would love to see a program as long as it fits within the budget.
Of course.
I love that a little bit earlier you said, I would love for people to bring up new ideas, and then you get a great idea from your daughter. Which
There
is
you
Yes.
go.
right
That's
there.
awesome. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Like I mean, you know this about me, but I listen to everybody, you know, and I just take all that information in. So you never know where a good idea is going to come
That's
from.
right.
So I love
100%.
From the mouth of babes, man.
There you go.
So on top of that, we talked about a little bit about historical prevention, but let's dig a little bit deeper into that, which is efforts to preserve historical buildings and provides incentives for restoration, and then encouraging sustainable practices such as green building and renewable energy in new developments.
Well, I mean, I think that's all very important. It really is. We do have a historical society. Main Street does a lot of the historical preservation down here. We have a CRA panel. We have a historical panel already at the city level, where people, you know, talk about it and talk about preservation. And, you know, again, that a lot of that is involved in the CRA district where most of our historical buildings are. So they can all apply for the grants to help facade, help clean up the interior, things of that nature. So there are programs in place. People just have not been educated on them, which is one thing I want to bring to the table too. I want to make sure the knowledge is getting out to the people.
Yes.
Like, for instance, you know, a business incentive. St. Cloud hosted an elevator pitch workshop.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
You know, and my wife was heavily involved in that as well. And, you know, on the 31st, I think a few of the 12 companies that were involved in that are actually up for like $1,000 prize, which can be used towards, you know, beautification, you know,
great.
whatever they need. You know, and it was for them participating in the elevator pitch, doing the work. And, you know, that right there is an incentive but the people have to know about it. That's why as soon as I saw the flyer, I was immediately pushing it out on social media.
Yeah, and
That's great.
I love that because it's saying, hey, if you're more involved, you will be rewarded.
Right.
You know, it's incentivizing involvement in your community, which I really like that method, so to speak, is, and to your point, you and I both know this, we all three know this because we're all very involved in the community, especially when it comes to businesses, but we'll go to these events and there's not a lot. You'll have your free flowing people, but to your point, you know, a lot of people will say like, oh, these meetings are behind closed doors, but they don't go to the doors to see how open they are.
Right. It's like St. Cloud Connect. And I mean,
Yes, yeah.
you know, I'm one of the founders of St. Cloud Connect. We started in January with 10 businesses in a small room.
Right.
You know, we're up to like 60 people who regularly show up. We actually have another meeting going on, you know, Thursday, the 24th of this month. And then we have an after hours for you. Actually, we're going to do your grand opening at Old Fashioned Cigar on election day of all days.
Yeah, that's good.
That's gonna be great.
So it's gonna be an awesome time, you know. But it's things like that where people just get involved in the community, and you know, there's no charge for St. Cloud Connect. It is 100% free to anybody. We have people who are just everyday citizens who come, who don't own a business because they just want to see what businesses are out there, how they can spend their dollar and keep their dollar in our community.
That's the point.
Yeah, and that's that's, you know, bringing it full circle. Like, seek those things out. They are there. They're out there.
Yeah.
Like, they're on Facebook. They're a lot of people, and yeah, I am calling people out here. They would rather sit behind their keyboard and say something, which is fine. If you have a liaison or someone to put your questions forward, that's why I'm doing this, right?
Right.
But we will better hear you if you approach us and have a conversation.
Right.
And if you bring something to the table that we can help you with, we're more than happy to help you with it.
Yeah.
If we don't know the answer, you know, I get it all the time in real estate.
We'll
I'm going to
find
seek someone out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to seek somebody out. Now, I mean, to your point, you know, if people really want to know what the events are going on and what's going on, you know, Jason, you created
that's
an
what it
awesome
is.
app.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was one of the first people to download that app. I love that app because I know so much more about what's going on because you have taken the different social media and information from the city website and everything, you've combined it into one place where you can literally search out and find out all the activities going on in town, which is why around my town. And I love that.
I appreciate it. Yep.
Yeah, and
awesome.
me as well. Like, I got in touch with him just because, like, when I started getting involved in the community, he was the perfect person to go to because he's very involved in the community.
Yeah.
And then that's where this blossomed from.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
I agree. And I just, you know, point being, like, get out there into your community.
Yeah.
It does affect you. But the real reason that you will have an effect on your community is if you put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And obviously vote for people that understand your values or share your values. That's
it.
what we're doing this podcast for. So our last topic is recreational and public spaces.
Well, I would like to see more pickleball courts in the area.
I think every city in the U.S. is saying the same
Saying
thing.
the same
because of
thing.
Growth in
And I do
popularity.
actually have a plan for that because
Okay.
we have tons of tennis courts around the city that are not used. But yet we have, I think, just 2 locations where we have pickleball courts currently, and they're constantly full. I mean, people are waiting in line to play.
Wow.
You know, we need to get with the times. Tennis, you know, tennis is a great sport. I mean, it is a sport, you know, nonetheless. But for the everyday average person, I think it's a dying sport.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, pickleball being the newer thing, plus, you know, it went in, it became really popular around COVID because pickleball, you're 6 feet away from, you know, each person. There's 4 people on a court. It's like a quarter of the size or a third of the size of a tennis court. So let's take some of the tennis courts that we have, revamp them. Let's figure out with some of these new developments that are going in, which I want to make all of them mixed use. I want to make it to where, because right now we have mixed use property in the city and there are 375 homes built on the mixed use. Great. Mixed use, let's do it like mixed use is supposed to be done. College Park's a perfect example. They have restaurants, stores, retail outlets on the first floor, professional offices on the second floor, third and fourth floor, or condos or apartments.
Right.
Those are the kinds of things we need to look at going forward with new development.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that if a developer is coming in to bring in a bunch of houses, that at least 25 to 30% of that area is commercial, so that specific community is paying for itself, tax-wise.
From a real estate perspective, it's just going to bring you more money.
More exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For like me being in real estate, I know that. I would love development with houses in residential and commercial, especially if I own both of those and I'm reselling them as a builder or a developer.
Right. Now, am I saying do that downtown? No, because you want to keep the downtown small town feel.
Yeah.
You want to keep our lakefront a small town feel. You don't want to make it Disneyland.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to drive people out of their homes. You don't want people to feel like they're going to be driven out of their homes, which is why I propose a mixed use program for, the areas, so that people have a choice. I mean, if I want to buy a piece of property on, say Florida Ave, and I want to turn that house into an office space, I should be able to do that.
Kissimmee has a lot of that.
Yeah, Kissimmee has.
Yep, Kissimmee has a ton of that. And actually there is some on the south end of Florida Ave, just north of 192. There's a bunch of residential that has been converted into commercial. I actually was looking to purchase one of them, but I figure I wait to do anything extra until the election's over, because I'm focused really on helping our community and focused on this campaign.
So just real quick though, going back to the recreation side, because there's a couple questions that I saw and people commenting on like walking paths, exercise equipment, more things to be in the public parks. What are your plans specifically to help with that?
Well, there's great avenues that we can take with that stuff. For instance, you go to Indian Harbor Beach. They have a beautiful park with a lake, and it's not necessarily exercise equipment like free weights and stuff, but it's almost like a obstacle course sort of, where you can do the workouts, you can do everything, and they have a little plaque that tells you how to use the thing. We should implement things like that. Walking paths, these new developments are coming in. Guess what? Let's mandate you guys have to have a walking path in there, a scenic path, something other than just the basic sidewalk where you're walking in front of houses. Create walking areas in that green space. Make it accessible for our younger people to fish. One of the biggest issues I see is our young people, they don't have much to do, and there's no jobs for them because there's no commercial here in town. So if we can make it so that there's more things to do outside, maybe the kids will go back outside.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get the whole family interacting and going for evening walks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of those things pop up, like what they just did to Florida Ave. Speaking of Florida Ave, I think that's great, and now I utilize it. There's one on what would it be, Dakota as well.
I think so. I think it's Dakota.
So there's one on Dakota as well, and then with there are some nice parks up and down the streets.
Absolutely.
Delaware has one. Dakota has one.
Delaware has a beautiful park. That's where one of the pickleball courts is.
Yeah.
Is right there on Delaware.
Yeah, and even if it's like mixed use residential, but even if it's not revamping all the tennis courts, but at least making the court flexible. You can switch in and out like whatever's popular. Obviously, it would be pickleball right now.
Right.
But we're not saying tear everything down and build everything new, but at least make it flexible.
Right.
Yeah.
So to kind of close real quick, because I know it's important, and I know we have to do a lot of research, leading up to our voting day, which, by the way, early voting starts on Monday.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, I'm excited. I'm going to be there first in line. But what does your first 90 days look like? If you were to get elected.
First, I want to go through the code, and I want to go through the processes and how the permitting goes, because I know of companies who submitted permits 2 years ago, and it still has not been approved. I know of a local bakery here who has been renting an extension of their facility from the landlord for over 6 months, and they still do not have the permit.
Incredible.
And I talked to a council member. The council member said, have them go see this person. They got to sign one form. They go down, they sign the one form. They go back, and then they're told, oh, there's more than just that one form. Now they have to do another process for change of use, because it's a little bakery and it's going to be restaurant instead of like a retail store.
Right.
And I'm like, come on, let's make this simple for people. Stop running people through the muck.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, outside of the code, what's your your full 90 days? What are your top priorities during that time?
Well, working on coming up with proposals to get it enticing for businesses to come.
Right.
Trying to get certain areas rezoned so that they're mixed use, and getting a section of property rezoned to manufacturing textile.
Yeah.
So, because we need to bring those higher paying jobs. Machine shops pay people excellent money. You know, the town I grew up in, not far from it, about 30 miles away, was Westfield, Massachusetts. And they have tons of machine shops there. As a matter of fact, their vocational school there, which I went to, one of their primary, lessons is machining. So, if we could get machine shops in here, we could get, even 3D printing has become a huge, huge thing. I'm seeing now houses being 3D printed. Let's look outside the box. Let's look at renewable energy. Instead of putting, filling our fields with solar panels, let's do like the VA did in Viera and actually, you want to put solar panels in? Sure, there's the Staples parking lot. Make it so that your vehicles are covered so they're not as hot when you have to get in and out of the vehicle, and you're producing power through the sun.
There you go.
Let's look at sustainable things that work that are common sense.
Yeah. That's good.
So that's pretty much my 90 days is to try to bring the city back to common sense.
Yeah. Good. Well, I think, Dawn, do you have anything else that you want to touch on?
No, I wish I did, because he was talking about a couple things and that like real estate brain was going, and I wanted to touch on those things. But I know I'll talk to you again, and obviously these are all ongoing issues. Like,
Right.
Yes.
These things aren't, as much as he wants to fix everything in 90 days, it's just not possible.
Yeah.
And every issue is going to be ongoing until multiple people solve it.
Right. And people also have to remember, you have to work with the other council members because you all have the exact same power.
Right.
So I can have the most brilliant idea on the planet, but if the rest of the council doesn't believe it's a good idea and they vote it down, it won't go through.
Yeah, that's really tough. Being a creative person myself, that is the number one problem. Is you'll have a ton of ideas, and usually, probably only about 5 of them are great, and then maybe only one of those gets heard.
Yeah.
So it's tough, but there's a process to everything, and obviously you're trying to clean up and really efficiently build on those processes and make them better, which I love. And I thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation.
I appreciate
and
you guys
putting it
having
out
me.
there. And we appreciate you guys for sending your questions in. That helps us know that we're getting traction. Everything we're doing is being watched, and you guys are getting involved, which I love.
Yeah.
So in closing, that's all for you, Jason.
That's it for me.
Before we close out, let's talk about some events coming up. Like, let's reiterate how important Election Day is, what the date is, and then any events surrounding that.
Yeah, so, Monday is Election Day.
No, Monday is start of
Monday
early voting.
it starts, so early voting. Election Day is November 5th. They have the monthly market on the 30th, which is a couple weeks. They have the Boo trick-or-treating here as well in downtown on on that Friday, Saturday. I don't have the app on me. The phone's over there.
They've done that forever, and it's a great event.
It's great. It's great. Trick or treating. The whole block, is packed. We have the Maniacs event as well, the witches during that time. It's a wonderful time. Really going back to that small town.
Yeah.
You have all those cool things that are coming down for the Halloween.
And it's just going to get better throughout the holidays.
Yeah.
And then the trail.
This time's great.
There's another trail.
Yeah, the Haunted Trail.
I'm
The
doing
Haunted
that
Trail.
tomorrow, actually.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do it every year.
And then another one too. It's not really Halloween focused, but Blink. Blink is a movie, is a show. City of Life Church. It's fantastic. It's the 25th anniversary. There's a lot going on. If you check the app, I gotta check it to make sure I didn't miss anything. But if you check the app, check their Facebook page as well. There's just tons of stuff there as well.
And if you're interested, St. Cloud Connect is going to be at a Helping Hand off of Commerce Boulevard next Thursday, which is the 24th of October.
Yeah, 8 a.m.
8 a.m.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go, guys. There's everything laid out for you to go get involved in with your community and see what's all going on and present us your ideas. So we'd love to hear from you guys. As always, Dalton Albritton, that's Jason Levy. Thank you so much to Tony Busby. And as always, this is Dalton inviting you to find your way to live in St. Cloud.
Thanks.